Good morning and welcome to today's webcast, Getting Started with Automation Solutions. Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief housekeeping video.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us. We're pleased to present another in our ongoing series of continuing professional education webcasts to help companies and individuals conquer challenges as they plan for what's next. Our presentation will start in a few moments. Before we begin, here are a few things to keep in mind. You can customize how you both view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can also adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls at the top of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons, each relating to a different aspect of our session. You can download the group attendance sheet and a PDF copy of today's slides from the slide deck and handouts widget to the right of the slide view. You can ask our presenter questions during the webcast by typing a question in the Q&A window below the slide view and clicking Submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions during the presentation or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty during today's presentation, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key.
As a reminder, the material appearing in this presentation is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as advice of any kind, including, without limitation, legal, accounting, or investment advice. And with that, I will turn it over to Michael to get us started.
Hi, thanks, Emily. Hi, everyone. This is Michael Parker. So I'm a partner in Moss Adams. I manage what's called our enterprise systems consulting practice. Been an enterprise systems consultant for a little over 30 years, really helping clients of all sizes, industries, find the right solutions that really drive value in their business. And that's really one of the things we want to talk about today. So I'm based in Denver, Colorado, and with me today, I also have one of our lead consultants, Alyssa Galvan. Alyssa, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'm Alyssa Galvan. I'm an automation lead consultant within our enterprise systems consulting team. Really, specializing in the life cycle of automation projects. So, process identification, implementation, and governance. Prior to my role in consulting, I spent time within Moss Adams Innovation Group, really just kind of research and development of different automation tools that were entering the market and getting to lead some internal implementation projects there as well.
Great. Thanks, Alyssa. So our agenda for today, we're going to focus on getting into automation. I think automation is a term everyone hears, has a lot of connotations, has a lot of potential for people. But today we're really going to focus on kind of that first step in of understanding. So start with the value of automation. I'll really talk about some use cases and some characteristics of automation. I think automation is a little bit of a ubiquitous term that people hear. And we want to make sure that we break it down into much more tangible and much more business-focused conversation. Then we'll transition into platform requirements, impact, and really kind of shifting into more of the software solution-based. And then going further down that path, really the vendor identification, selection. What's the right vendor for you? There is no one vendor that's the right one for everyone or the best in the market. It really depends on what's the right fit for you. And then really talking about looking ahead and how do you start to take advantage of automation within your business and within your set of processes. So that we'll start talking about the value of automation. So really the value of automation is being able to automate manual tasks that you perform frequently. Everybody has them. Everybody has a set of tasks that is done by people, that is done via spreadsheets. It's via done, multiple systems. And really, the idea behind automation is be able to have that done in a consistent, repeatable manner. Every day, every month, every week, and so really being able to drive all of these different pieces, and then be able to define what that value that you need to gain out of automation. I mean, we've tried to list some areas here of different value statements we've gotten from customers. We know that's in the market. But really the idea, again, is what do you need out of automation? What value do you need? Some people are in a high growth organization and really want that scalability. They want that lower headcount. Some people are having a hard time with headcount, especially now in the current state, and really need to do more with less. And automation can be a very meaningful driver in being able to do that. Some people are trying to drive cost and errors and issues out of their process flow. And again, automation can be a huge value in that. But I think this is a personal conversation for your business as to what can you gain out of automation and what moves the meter in your business. Some, again, people have different focal points, and we want to make sure that you're focused on the things that, again, drive that value for the investment in automation as you move into this area, as you move into both the evaluation and the usage of solutions. So the first thing we want to do is really identify what are those use cases. Financial operations are just a ripe area for automation. It's full of manual tasks. Lots of love for Excel and being able to just put things into Excel and write macros and multi-tab spreadsheets, and that really in a lot of cases run your business. But the idea is to be able to look at those use cases, look at the pain points. Some pain points are, again, time, cost, availability of resources, error rate, the ability to do more with less, the scale, things of that. So you really want to treat this like a business case. You want to look at what is my business case for automation and evaluate what are my current pain points. What are the manual tasks that I do that create issues in my organization, that occupy time and headcount, that again take longer on the calendar than needed and create backlog of other processes, and really being able to assess that and understand that. The next, from that list, you really want to just dig down, and you want to understand what are those processes. Where are they done? How are they done? What are those impediments? Is it a workflow? Is it just, again, a manual process? Is it an error rate? Is it a redo rate? Is it, a lot of things like that, and really just understanding that. And then you want to take that and map it to key automation characteristics, and we'll get into those in a little bit. But really, again, think about this as a business case. Think about driving a business case for automation in your business that has what is the investment needed for automation, what's my value for automation, and what's my path to gain that value through automation. And then you really want to be able to establish those requirements. What do I need to get out of it? What does success look like? Again, and I think that varies for every organization. Everyone looks at it a little bit differently. Everyone has their own definition of success, both short-term and long-term. I think what we find in talking to clients and working with clients is that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, but there's also a larger, longer path of strategic automation that may take more effort, may take more time, but still you want to look at it from how can automation fit within my business? How can it help drive my business? And how can it really help me meet my business goals through the better use of technology in whether I'm in an accounting department, I'm in an operations group, I'm in any aspect of the business, HR. There's automation use cases for all aspects of the business, and it all boils down to what do you do manually today that you could automate tomorrow. So the next piece really is around what are those characteristics. We talked about the characteristics of automation, and I think when everybody thinks about automation, they think about RPA or robotic process automation. And it is definitely a piece. There are many different kinds of automation. For today, we're really going to kind of focus on two, the robotic process automation and the analytic process automation. And if you think about the difference in those two and how, again, what is that match for processes? What is that match for value in your business? RPA, or robotic process automation, is really about emulating what a user does or an employee does today manually, logging into systems, entering data into Excel. It follows the same process over and over again. It's highly repetitive. It is a simple decision tree. You can't have very complex decision trees as you look at these types of processes. So really, those are the frameworks that you want to look at RPA. Some examples of things that we get are invoice matching, bank reconciliation. There's a lot of things like that, and again, that you do every day that is just a repeated, getting data from one system to another system. Anything that, again, revolves following the same set of steps. If you have a standard operating procedure document and you're following that and you're doing that manually, as a general statement, RPA can be of value to that. So you really just want to look at, how do I take the people element and obviously then the error rate, because in a lot of these pieces you have miskeyings, you have translations in data, you have things that need to happen that requires redo or re-input, or just, again, elongates the process. The other type of automation is called analytic process automation. And I'm old school. I kind of align this to what used to be called ETL, or extract, transform, load. But in APA, the goal is to automate the gathering of a broad set of data. So think about disparate data that you're pulling from. You may be pulling from your accounting system. You may be pulling from an operational, system like an inventory system or manufacturing system. You may be pulling from spreadsheets. You may be pulling from, access databases that have been around your business forever. And the idea is pulling all of that data together and then having a workflow that transforms that data. You may have, if field X equals a certain value and field Y equals a certain value, I need to create a value for a new field, or I need to merge data sets, or I need to, things like that. So, and then you can outsource that to any output. It could be back into a system. It could be into a data warehouse for a business intelligence. It could be back out to Excel if you really, want to leverage that. But the idea of taking, again, the manual effort and the manual analysis out of that. So if you think about what a workflow can look like, that's what APA does. It takes all of that manual collection, manual transformation, and manual output, and automates that in a way where you can do that much faster. You can do that much more effective. So i.e., again, lower error rate, and, again, reduced transaction costs, reduced process cost. So really, those are the two characteristics of the two types of process automation that we're going to talk about today. So with that, I'll transition over to Alyssa and let her talk about the platform.
Thanks, Mike. So once you've kind of gone through and put those use cases together, evaluated them for those key characteristics, it's time to start thinking about, what do you need from an automation platform? What are your requirements going to be there? One of the big areas here is, who's going to be building these automations? Is that something that you are going to have internal resources for, or is that something potentially you want to outsource for? This is also a good place to kind of bring IT into the conversation, make them aware that you're, evaluating different automation platforms. They might just have some things that they want you to consider, maybe from, technical infrastructure standpoint, or even, data security. Just having those conversations with them early on really kind of makes that process a lot smoother. as you go along. And then, of course, budget. So kind of thinking around, what your investment in this platform is going to be. A lot of different vendors have different licensing models. There's some that have, minimum purchase requirements, others that allow you to kind of purchase license by license. So having a good idea of that information is really going to help you as you move into your vendor selection process. So here we can kind of walk through an example of how all of this information kind of really just helps you narrow down which vendors you want to look into a little bit more. So let's say based off of your use cases, you determine that, you could really benefit from the implementation of an RPA solution. So you're going to start looking at the different RPA vendors in the market. You take a look at the RPA market and you see a lot of different vendors within that space. So, it can be, kind of intimidating sometimes to be like, well, where do I start? So that's really where you want to go back to those platform requirements, and those are really going to help you narrow down your search. So for example, if we look at the developer resources, one question that you want to ask is, are you going to be using experienced developers? And really that's kind of defined as somebody who has a more traditional computer science background, IT background, or are you going to take a citizen developers approach? Citizen developers are really kind of the business users, the people who are completing these tasks currently, and essentially building automations to automate those tasks that they're doing. So really kind of, the process experts when it comes to the business logic that needs to be followed. So let's say you want to take a citizen developer approach, you want your business users building automations, then you might want to go with a vendor that offers more of a low-code platform that has an easier interface to interact with and kind of upskill and learn on. Again, kind of just bringing IT considerations in there, a little bit more technical aspect, but, helping your decision between maybe pursuing cloud products versus on-prem products. If you're working with highly sensitive data, then you might want to consider, an on-prem solution. If you're thinking about speed of updates and infrastructure requirements, you might want to investigate some cloud products, and then add-ons. A lot of these platforms, have their core RPA or APA functionality, but they're offering more additional tool sets on top of their, already existing core platform. One thing I wanted to highlight here is the term intelligent automation. So this is a term that you'll hear a lot within the automation space. It has a lot of different definitions based on who's kind of talking about it. But the way I like to think of it is giving your automations the ability to start making decisions. So, at the core, an automation is really only going to do exactly what you have told it to do. It's not going to think for itself. So let's say a standard RPA bot isn't going to make any decisions. But if you combine an RPA bot with a machine learning model that's running in the background, you're then enabling the bot to make some educated decisions based off of that model that you develop. So one use case where this is applicable is an RPA bot, scanning a PDF invoice to capture all of that information, either to move it onto, say, a spreadsheet or into an accounting system. Beyond just being able to pull that information, the intelligent part that comes in where the bot's actually able to determine where that information should be categorized based off of, that machine learning model that's running in the background. So just kind of thinking about those add-ons, at the beginning, you might not have a need for some of those things, but if you're thinking about future use, just looking at, should we invest in a platform that we can kind of add on these capabilities later on so that we don't have to kind of go through a separate platform in the future. So once you kind of narrow it down, you'll be able to kind of identify who your top vendors are. go through a demo process with them. Most of these vendors offer trial periods, so I definitely encourage utilizing those and trying to build out one of those use cases that you identified during that trial period can be really beneficial, just to help you know that you this is the right fit for your organization. So then, kind of looking a little bit ahead, let's say you've developed a few automations, you're really having success with them. It's time to start thinking around establishing a governance model. So the minute that you deploy an automation, you have incorporated digital workers within your organization. So making sure that you have, management of those automations in place. Let's say you had a major upgrade to one of your systems and the automation interacts with that system on a daily basis. You want to make sure that you have protocols in place to test those automations, that after that major update it's still performing and giving you the same results as expected. Another area here is education. So I kind of like to think of this in two different buckets. The first being, upskilling on the platform. Maybe this is kind of more education from a how you build automation standpoint, but also, educating the organization on the value that you've been getting from these automations. So making sure that, everyone's aware of what you've implemented, what the impact has been, and, what that value is that you're seeing from those automations. And then also keeping in mind, building up a robust project pipeline. So this is one place that continues to be a little bit of a speed bump for a lot of organizations, in that they have success with, implementing the first few handfuls of automations, but then they kind of hit a little bit of a slowdown. And that's because they didn't really kind of spend time building out a robust project pipeline. So you want to ensure that, as you continue to scale, that you have a way to continue to generate ideas across your business, a way to, capture those ideas. And then, what is the criteria that you're evaluating on? Back to kind of what Mike was saying, what is high value for your organization, and how does that help you determine, the priority of what gets developed first? And that should really kind of help you, achieve that scalability, keep your momentum going, and continue to see, just the impact of your investment and the value that it's bringing. So I will hand it back to Mike now to talk through one of our automation advisory packages.
Right. Thanks, Alyssa. And as Alyssa said, I think one of our big things we're advocating is, as you get into an automation, as you start to take that step, again, treat it like a business case. So one of the things we've created that we work with our clients on is called an automation advisory package. And the idea is to do just what we've talked about during this presentation, but it's really understanding your pain points, helping to catalog those things, and identifying a short list. We're believers of, stick your toe in the water. Let's get a few successes. Let's really understand how automation works in your environment and in your processes, and pick. We chose 4 as a kind of an arbitrary number, but wanted to pick a more than one, but yet a small enough number so you can see them in different use cases and different processes, and then walk through those processes. How do they work? How do they need to work? What are the pain points? What are that, and be able to understand, if I could cut this down from, 3 days to 3 hours, what does that mean? What is the hard cost, the soft cost? What is the impact of that on, again, maybe other processes and your overall timeline, say in, month-end close, or in, again, just any other process that you have dependencies across multiple stages. And you want to document that. You want to, again, treat this like a business case, and create, what is that value? What is my investment? How is that going to work? And this is really the idea for getting started, is to be able to say, I understand my plan. I understand a set of, proof of concept, if you will. And then I also have my way to catalog, deem the value of and prioritize specific processes based on the characteristics we talked about early in the call. And equally as important, what type of automation works? Because if you've got two processes that really need APA and you've got two processes that need RPA, you're talking about different technologies, you're talking about different vendors, you're talking about a higher spend. Or does it make sense to focus on maybe your top 10 processes that could really take advantage of RPA, and then look at AP as a phase 2, or vice versa, depending on what's the higher priority for your business? Because again, the spend is one side of that coin. Is what is your investment in automation, and obviously then what's the realization of that value within your business? Because I do think everyone's business is very, very different, and the value that you can gain from automation is very, very different within each business. So with that, we'll do QA. We have the QA open. Feel free to enter your questions in QA. We're glad to answer anything, glad to address anything. And if you just want us to follow up, you can also put that in the QA, and we're glad to take it offline. If you'd rather not ask a public question, more than glad to do that. You do see on here both my email address as well as Alyssa's email address. So if you do want to reach out privately, more than glad to. But we'll give a couple minutes for QA. We don't have anything currently in the QA queue, but we'll give it a minute or so. All right, well, we don't have anything yet. So I'll just close out. I wanted to say thank you for your time. We hope this was, again, a good starter to thinking about how you approach automation. We do have a question now. It says, can you discuss some of the systems? Oh, here we go. Now we're starting to get questions. So I'll address those. Can you discuss some of the systems and use cases you see most useful for organizations? Again, I think within each of these spaces, there's a lot of vendors. We personally, from the RPA side, we work with two different partners. We work with a company called Planet Data Systems, as well as UiPath, are the two that we have our expertise in. On the analytics process or the APA side, we work with a product called Alteryx. The use cases we see cover a very broad spectrum. Again, I kind of mentioned a couple that came to top of mind for me, which was AP automation, so invoice matching, bank reconciliation, things like that. And then but also, again, on the APA side, we've done everything from creating tax forms, for state and local tax pieces, to aggregating, again, multiple systems across multiple entities and organizing that data for single system consolidation, anything like that. So there's a lot of use cases. What ERP vendors do we recommend? That's a whole separate conversation, John. I'm more than glad to talk to you there. The nice thing about automation is it doesn't matter. Automation can, as long as you're talking about repeatable processes, doesn't matter if you're talking about a homegrown system, you're talking about a cloud-based system, an on-premise system. If you're doing the same things over and over again, you can handle that through automation. Example of what APA would be, Paul, I kind of just mentioned this, but the idea is anything that requires disparate data. So again, if I'm looking at, I need to collect data out of multiple systems. So one use case that we have is we have an entity that owns a lot of different facilities and locations under different business units. They all run different systems. And so data is coming in from a multitude of different systems, and then ultimately then needs to be, aggregated, compiled, and then in this case uploaded into their specific their corporate accounting system. And so that was a use case we did for them. So to be able to pull that data in, perform all the calculations on, again, their real estate taxes in this case, and then be able to put that up into their accounting system. But Alyssa, I don't know if you have other examples of things that you've seen in APA, but
yeah, one other use case, similar concept to that one, is we were able to automate one organization's quarterly global consolidations process from all of their foreign entities and U.S. entities, something that they were performing quarterly, but they wanted to do more often. So now they're able to actually run the process on a monthly basis, and we got it down from, hours to minutes using an APA workflow.
And then another question from Julie is ROI considerations. And the ROI considerations, again, is ultimately what is the value you're getting out of that? Is that, is it a cost reduction? Is it a time increase or decrease, excuse me? Is that, again, an error rate reduction? So ROI considerations really go back to what are the pain points, how do we solve those pain points, and what's the value of those pain points within your business, and being able to quantify that, both in hard and soft costs, because I do think there's two different categories there. Someone asked about Microsoft Automate. It is a leading product in the space. It's something we see frequently. And then the range of costs. The range of costs are all over the board. We have people who implement one bot, two bots, and we have people that do that as a kind of, again, a proof of concept, and then then move forward in a more broad-based, robust automation project and approach. And the costs are completely all over the board, depending on the number of use cases, the vendor you choose, what type of automation you're talking about. So definitely something we could talk to in more detail, but it really isn't a relevant range to just have a general term. So with that, want to turn it back over to Emily.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mike and Alyssa, for a great presentation today. I wanted to share a link to an online survey where you can provide feedback for today's presentation. Please take a moment to complete this survey, as your feedback is very important to us. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again next time.